Thank you for tuning in to This is Freedom. Every week we address topics and share teachings designed to encourage your personal growth and help you achieve freedom and victory in every area of life. Journey with us as our host, international author and speaker, Demontae Edmonds engages listeners with practical insights and deep truths that help change your life.
Welcome to This is Freedom. I'm your host, Demontae Edmonds. Each week I come before you with exciting interviews, topics, messages, and subject matters that are relevant for life and that helps to equip you to experience freedom and liberty in every area of your life. And this week I not only have a special guest, I have a special friend and sister that's going to be on the show with us this week, Dr. Kim Black. Dr. Kim Black has so many credentials and so many accolades, but I want to say that she's a powerful speaker, author. She has so many divine insights on so many topics, and she's especially anointed and gifted to help people in the areas of their soul, in the areas of inner healing, and in the areas of achieving personal success and maximizing their potential by overcoming obstacles. So Dr. Black, I want to welcome you onto the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you and be able to share with the people.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I asked you on, I want to talk about a topic that I think isn't talked about enough. And it's maybe not something that happens frequently, but it happens frequent enough to do damage to people and cause negative cycles to happen in their life. I wanted to talk today about surviving betrayal. And the way that this came about, we were doing a group collaborative with some leaders recently, and somebody talked about the feelings of betrayal, and you gave some great insights and feedback, and it pricked my heart. This would be something to delve into more, to deal with more, and to talk about. I believe
definitely. A lot of people don't realize, but statistics show that over 90% of humankind, the population, that is 35 years old or older has experienced betrayal. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's so basically, I want to say that's almost everybody because
right. If you live long enough, you may experience a deep betrayal. So it's good that you're talking about this topic to show people how to overcome and that they can survive it.
So I want to ask you this, and this may sound very basic, but I want to lay a foundation. What is betrayal? Because sometimes people may say, oh, I was betrayed, but it may not actually be a real betrayal. But what separates a betrayal from just somebody treating you bad or somebody being unkind to you? What is a betrayal?
I call betrayal one of the kisses of life. There are certain things that we go through and we experience, especially if you're in any position of leadership. You may experience betrayal, but betrayal just at the core is when someone violates your trust, when someone violates your confidence. At its root, it means to cast someone up or deliver them, to their opponent or to their enemy, to give power over to another. A classic word that summarizes betrayal is traitor, that someone exercised. You want to say, oh, they are a traitor. They were disloyal, that they gave over your secrets to the enemy's camp or your rival's camp. Because there's so many venues that betrayal can occur in, whether it's relational in marriage, whether it's vocational in your career, whether it's political. We see political betrayals all the time. There are just so many avenues that the traitor of betrayal or the kiss of betrayal can rear its ugly head.
Wow. So you defined it in a way that I've never heard it before. One word that comes to mind when I think of betrayal is treachery. I do think of
Yes.
traitor, and I think of treachery as well, because most betrayals, the person doesn't say, hey, I betrayed your confidence today. You normally find out on the back end. There's some treachery
Exactly.
involved. But you said it can be delivering a person to their opponent or enemy.
Exactly.
And that puts the
Exposing them, making them vulnerable. That's one of the common emotions of betrayal. You feel uncovered and vulnerable now.
Wow. Wow.
And it's not really betrayal unless it was a close companion, someone who you trusted enough to share your secrets, your confidence. You were able to, quote unquote, let your hair down with them.
And
it's not someone who's far from you, a distant friend. It has to be a close friend, a close companion.
And that's what makes it hurt.
Yes.
That's what does the psychological damage.
Yes.
So,
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people don't realize when you've gone through a betrayal, it doesn't just affect you mentally, but the effects of betrayal affects your whole person, mentally, physically, emotionally, and if you're a spiritual person, even spiritually.
yes. So let me just share this. I went through betrayal one time, but probably more than one time, but one that stands out. And I remember during this particular season, when I would lay down, I could literally feel the daggers. I could feel the arrows. I could feel the betrayal. And I would have headaches. And I would have restlessness. And also, it seemed like some level of fatigue. And like it can affect you at the root of your being.
Right. Now, because betrayal hits you like it's a trauma. And the effects of trauma, you would be surprised. It's like a shock. There's grief. There is damage to your esteem. You can begin to doubt yourself. It's a life-altering occurrence, and it causes lack of focus, sleeplessness, restlessness, anxiety, fatigue, as you mentioned, and physical exhaustion.
Wow. You know, I've never heard it stated as a trauma. When we think of traumas, we think of car accident, divorce, premature death of a lost one, stillborn child, molestation. We think of these things, but you're right. Betrayal's a trauma. And from my own personal experience and from others, I can see those symptoms of being traumatized.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this, because you mentioned this. You mentioned political betrayal. That's it's almost sometimes we associate a politician with a person that's part of their duty is to betray the trust of the people or betray their party or for their own interest or whatever. But before we get into relational betrayal, a lot of people think of that. Vocational betrayal. You said that. Let's talk about vocational betrayal a little bit.
Right. You're the bright, shiny, I'll use my daughter as an example. You're the new lawyer in the office, and you come in with great ideals. You're a world changer. You have a heart for social justice, social reform. And then you get in there and you begin to share your ideals. You confide with people the things, your drawings, your structures and new diagrams and insights, only to find out maybe a month later after you shared that someone else is taking credit for your work.
Yes, I've seen that happen.
Yes. And you think, oh my God, I trusted them, and there was such a deceit involved and a betrayal. You thought that you were sharing ideals with some kind of person of integrity. You assume that there's integrity in the workplace.
Wow. And you know what happens in some of those situations, workplace related? It actually stifles the entire organization to some degree, because you get people that really have creativity, they have innovation, they have fresh ideas and insights. And when that happens, now they shut down, they lose their innovation, they lose their glow.
Right, and they become suspicious if they don't deal with those feelings that it caused.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, relational.
Woo, yeah, that's a big one.
One of the big ones is we all, of course, cheating, infidelity. But break it down some more. Give us some more examples or insights, or that really impacts
A
people.
major betrayal that a lot of women are experiencing. Well, I shouldn't say just women. Men may be experiencing it too. Just in my, counseling, helping people. Betrayal comes in for. I've helped a lot of women because they think they have a great marriage. I mean, their sex life is great. They're getting along fine with their husband. They're active in their community. They're active in their local worship community as well, only to find out at some point it's uncovered that their husband has a strong pornography addiction.
Yes.
And it feels like adultery. It feels it's a true betrayal of their trust. They feel their esteem is attacked, and they feel that their husband has cheated, although it was visually and emotional cheating. That's a big area of betrayal that a lot of women are faced with in this culture that is image driven and sexually explicit.
Wow. So, I wasn't expecting you to go in that direction. I didn't
I'm
think.
sorry.
No, but it's good. It's good because a lot of men, even those that are religious or so-called quote unquote spiritual, struggle secretly with pornography. It's a secret stronghold.
Right. It's not reserved for the secular. It is affecting the church as well.
Everyone. Yep. And then as well, I just, I've had some women come and tell me they were struggling with pornography. I had men tell me they're married, but they're struggling with pornography. And I remember one woman, she called me and said, listen, I caught my husband doing X, Y, and Z on the computer. And if you don't come over here and talk to us and deal with him, I'm going to kill him. So, I mean, it was just like she had caught him with another woman. She was disappointed in him. Now, I want to kind of speak from this. Oftentimes the women take it as betrayal. And I think in many of the cases, it doesn't have to do with the wife so much. It more has to do with that man hasn't dealt with feelings of rejection or dealt with feelings of even sexual abuse he may have went through as a young person or things that he's been exposed to. And I heard a therapist recently that was at our house, not counseling us, but just hanging out for a dinner, was telling another person at our house at this like social mixer, said that there was a study that men that didn't have strong father figures and strong male relationships that were older males to mentor them have a double or triple chance that they're going to get into having
a propensity to lean towards pornography addiction. Okay.
Do you think that's true, or what do you feel about that?
I'm sure it's true. As our topic is that you can survive betrayal, but you have to be willing to do the work. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people avoid uncomfortable conversations, even when they're with yourself. Even when you have to do your own heart work and go back and look into your life. And so there's always some kind of root issue of abandonment, neglect, some missing needed piece in the hierarchy of life. And so I agree wholeheartedly. There's some root issue that needs to be uncovered and healed so that you can really deal with that.
Wow. I agree. And it can get so bad. I think, both as our Christian ministers, that people can get actual spirit upon them.
Oh, yes.
I've heard of, guys, I'm going to go back into betrayal, but this is to help free some people up. I remember one gentleman said that he had a box of videos back when it was VHS or videotapes. And he threw it all in the garbage can. And then he said he went back an hour later and retrieved all of it out of the garbage can. that's like a drug addict. That's a spirit that's upon the person. And so now they're not only trying to compensate for rejection or low self-esteem, they're feeding a demonic spirit.
Exactly. And let me be transparent. I made reference to men with problems, but as I was growing up, my parents weren't saved the majority of my childhood. And my mother eventually became a woman of God, a person of the church. But in my formative years, my parents had nothing to do with the church or anything like that. And so it was normal in our household back then. Drive-in movies were all the rage. And they would take my sister and I to very sexual movies from an early age. So Friday night, Saturday night, I'll be in the back seat watching Foxy Brown and, stripping. And my father had magazines in the house. And so from a young child, I was exposed to nudity, exposed to sexual things. And so I didn't realize that I had a propensity to want to see those kinds of acts and things like that. So it can begin, quote unquote, innocently. And you have to really get a handle on it as you grow older, not realizing it can form into an addiction.
Yes, you're right. I mean, once the Bible talks about those gates, the gates of the eyes and the ears,
Exactly.
the pride of life and the sins of the eyes, and the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes. The lust of the eyes is a gate for what we call demonic encroachment, demonic infiltration.
Exactly.
I remember being in second grade, and the cable man came to reprogram my cable box. Back then, the cable man had to come. He had to hold his white button. He had to do all of this stuff to give you the channels that you paid for. And he was being lazy. He said, I'm just going to give you all the channels. It'll save me 25 minutes. And
right.
One of the channels included was Playboy.
Yes.
And so, and I saw stuff that I had to go back and tell my parents, you won't believe what I saw on TV. but those doors are open, and we're going to get into the power of deliverance and how people can get delivered from these things before we're done today. But it's true. But so let's get back to betrayal. That's one as well. So a wife in that situation, hypothetically, she catches the husband, and he's not someone that's been neglecting her sexually. Well, let's look at both scenarios.
Okay.
Maybe he's been neglecting her. Let's say husband A has not been neglecting her. Husband B has been neglecting his wife. We can't tell people how to respond, but what should she do?
Wife that has not been neglected?
Either wife. You can take either one or both.
Well, let's do the one who has not been neglected.
Okay.
There needs to be some candid conversation, open conversation. She needs to be able to communicate how the act causes her to feel and the impact it has on her emotionally as a woman, as a spouse, and as a wife. And that, it's hurtful, it's wounding. And that's one of the main, not the main reason, but why this behavior needs to cease. I mean, because it is having a different effect on him. It's a secret life, like a hidden, clandestine act, because I'm sure there's shame associated because it was hidden. So he needs to be able to share with someone, even if it's not her, a trusted counselor, a trusted leader, or maybe someone who's gone through it and has received a major level of freedom in that area, about what we talked about before, those core issues and what has been missing in his life. And then they come together to establish some practical and reasonable accountability. Accountability, a lot of people mistake as, I want to have the freedom to go through your phone anytime, or that kind of thing. That's not real accountability.
That's almost invasive. It's a level of being invasive versus accountability.
Exactly. Now you're entering into controlling the other person. We're talking about some true accountability where you're not left alone for hours on end with the computer, or whatever your mode of viewing the pornography is, that you can provide some mutual accountability. And like you even said, that if it's a TV channel, you need to go back to your COTS provider and take off those channels or put blocks, whereas like early on in my marriage, we decided we wouldn't have, channels that show X-rated movies because of my early childhood. And so we just took that off of our subscription, because sometimes they'll try to give it to you for free. But if you know there's someone in your house that has a problem with that, you need to cut that off. That's a level of accountability, not just checking my browsing history every time you get ready.
You're right. And the people that's real sneaky, they cleaning the browser 10 times.
Exactly.
That may be a sign. You don't even have one cookie on the computer browser.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of the shame and deception that becomes a part of an addiction. And I know we're talking about deliverance from betrayal, but if you're deciding to stay with your spouse who has betrayed you, you're going to have to figure out ways to rebuild trust. That's the major component. How can we rebuild trust?
That is one of the major things that I see talking to couples or individuals in a marriage, that trust has been broken. Yes. One party that's willing to rebuild trust, and the other party that's, hey, you caught me, it happened, but I just want to continue living my life going on. I don't want you really to say anything to me. I don't want to walk away.
Right. It didn't really affect you, and that's not true. You just don't understand how it affected the other person.
Or don't care.
Right. You got so the rebuilding of trust requires commitment from both parties. If both parties are not committed to rebuilding trust, it's not the burden or the responsibility of just one partner to rebuild trust. It takes both of them. And in many cases, if that can't happen, you may need to consider moving forward in a way without that partner.
So let me throw this out there as we talk about betrayal. Does it seem like it's harder for men to deal with the wife being unfaithful or infidelity or adultery than for women? And if so, why?
I think that it damages the man
ego.
I was trying to think of a better word than ego, but ego. And he has a picture in his mind. I remember, let me just share this story. When you're newly married and you're like out in the mall or at the park or, different places, and men would, woohoo, whistle at you, or back then it wasn't so disrespectful the way it is today. Or, we called it holler at you, that kind of thing. Back in the day, I'm an 80s product.
I remember that. They used to holler.
I wanted my husband to be angry and, just respond, crazy. And he said to me that he asked the Lord for a wife who wasn't going to cheat on him, but a beautiful wife that was desirable. And so when the woman cheats, it damages his ego in multiple arenas, because he has a picture of a wife for life, I believe, that he has, been willing to work for her, to give his all for her. And so he has a picture, an expectation in his mind that she'll be faithful and true to him always as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think for a lot of men, it comes unexpected, so it does even more damage. They don't see the signs of it because they're caught up in whatever they have.
Right. They become more compartmentalized, and so they're not looking for that or expecting that. They're out there breadwinning and doing what spouses and husbands do, not realizing, that she's using the time to see someone else. It's like a shock. Like we said, betrayal opens the door to shock. They're in shock. Like, what in the world?
And the anger sometimes turns to violence for the men because it just overwhelms them because it is shocking.
I mean, and betrayal, when we're talking about, remember I said it affects the whole person. It's a trauma that sets the brain, that sets you into that fight or flight syndrome.
Wow.
So men may fight because it's their natural instinct, their created instinct to fight or to flight.
That's powerful.
And so you have to be careful with that. And it's part of the shock.
Wow.
So they may respond, what you think is crazy, like, what are you doing with that gun? But they're in shock syndrome. They've been traumatized. They've been shook. Before they realized that they had their hands around your throat,
Yes. I mean, I'm laughing, but from a psychological, emotional standpoint, I mean, it's absolutely true. That adrenaline.
And if you took them to court, and a reasonable defense would be, I was in shock.
Yep. They call it blacking out.
Yeah.
Being shell shocked.
Exactly. I was out of my mind for a moment.
So as well, and I've heard people say that they felt like they was watching themselves when they did some,
Exactly.
aggressive act. Now, you're a Christian leader as well. You and your husband, Apostle Sammy Black, pastor Dominion Ministries in Hampton, and your own ministry, WWROAR, and all the things that you do, prophetic boot camps, all of these things in ministry. I believe anyone in ministry deals with that's been a senior leader. Some people say they're senior leaders, but I mean like you're a real senior leader. That
right.
Deal with betrayal probably more or at a higher degree than your average person.
Yeah, but I have discovered that it is a part of your process.
Yes.
Of leadership. So it's nothing wrong with you because you've been through it. It's part of your maturation process.
I agree. I think about the words of Jesus Christ. He said, the servant is not greater than the master. Basically saying, I went through betrayal with Judas,
right.
Traveled with him, I believe, for 3 years or 3.5 years or the greater part. He was very close.
Right.
He loved Judas. You see, even when he knew that he was going to betray him, he still was very kind to him. And I believe he really loved Judas. That was one of his top 12, one of his, top picks.
Exactly. He didn't treat him any differently than the others.
Any differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it had to.
It had to. But when you're talking about, I think one of the major hurdles is forgiveness, that, we're required to forgive. And when you think about when someone betrays you and you think about the reasons why people betray you, jealousy, fear, greed, power hungry, position hungry, insecurity, it may help you in understanding human nature and then being able to cross the bridge to forgiveness more quickly.
Wow, that's good. That if you kind of look at not just the betrayal,
right,
but basically the weakness of the person,
exactly,
that could be exploited.
Right.
Then
especially
it causes you
when
to be
you
a little bit more
understand
merciful upon that person, because I may not have insecurity or rejection to the degree I'm going to betray someone, but I may have insecurity and rejection to some degree so I can relate to it.
Exactly. Or even if your betrayal hasn't been found out, there was a reason you told the secret.
There you go.
Right.
A lot of us have been betrayers and we just were never found out.
Exactly. And then, to be able to extend grace, to extend mercy for those who have been found out.
Now, my question is this, especially if it's a betrayal that was meant to be malicious.
Right, right.
Or any type of betrayal. What is the road to recovery? That's one. Give us some more things to help people overcome betrayal, even to identify that maybe they dealt with a betrayal from 10, 15, 20 years ago. They've not dealt with it, and how they can get deliverance.
Okay. Number one, acknowledge that you're still hurting and that you need healing, you know, in that area. And we already, number two would be to have the right conversations with the right people who can help you overcome that. Because a lot of times, you know, especially in the Black community, there was a lot of shame when you felt that you weren't able to overcome something by yourself. But like, as we talked about, betrayal can usher you into anxiety, feelings of hopelessness, extreme vulnerability, flight syndrome, shock syndrome, fatigue syndrome, because it affects your whole body. And so if you find yourself with nightmares and dreams, and you're always rehearsing it, always thinking about it, you need to consider reaching out and getting some help. And I'm not just saying a professional counselor, but someone, you know, whether it's in your, I call it circle of light, someone who has been a leader for, you know, quite some time, and that can help in that area that you feel comfortable sharing your heart with without shame. Because a lot of times, when, even if you're not the betrayer, you feel ashamed to tell someone what happened to you sometimes.
Yes, because I'm gonna put it in layman's terms. Sometimes when you've been betrayed, you feel like a sucker. You feel like you've been played.
Exactly. How could I be so stupid? How could I not seeing that? You know, self-doubt just comes running in. What could I have done differently? And then if condemnation comes in, where you're taking out your own baseball bat, beating yourself up. Well, I should have been a better this. I should have done better that. You know, it just can be a vicious cycle to defeat you and to cause your personality, your self-worth to be destroyed. And so you really need to work on that. So acknowledge, be willing to get help, be willing to not, even if it, you know, goes to quote unquote the reconciliation, but it's important that you learn to forgive, that you release the anger, that you don't carry around the dagger in your heart, that you don't carry around the poison of it. Because even though you feel like the person doesn't deserve your conversation or your time, you're poisoning your own body and you're poisoning your own life if you keep the bitterness. Because you got to let the situation make you better instead of bitter.
That's powerful. Let the situation make you better than bitter. And I believe that people that overcome and, like you said, learn to forgive, forgiveness becomes easier.
Right.
Amen. The next betrayals doesn't have much of an impact or blow upon you. And you can literally brush them off. And then as well, you become wiser.
Woo! Yeah.
How to deal with your boundaries, how to deal with your circles of influence, on who to tell what, on what to keep quiet, what to just only share with God. And then ultimately, you can go to God, go to Jesus, and ask him to help you. Because a lot of times the betrayals are so deep-rooted, especially if there's already an open wound. For instance,
exactly.
Been married and the husband cheated on her 20 times, and then she gets married to the new husband and she lets him know, hey, I went through this really bad marriage. I was, you know, destitute. I was beat down. I was broken. Please don't let this happen. I can't take it again. He does the same thing. Now there's an open wound.
Right.
Multiplied. And so some of those situations, you really have to just go to God and say, I'm angry, I'm upset. You can even tell him, I want to kill this person. Now, don't kill him, But
Right.
God can help you process and deal with those emotions and ultimately bring
Right.
forgiveness to yourself and also forgiveness to the other party.
You know, it really boils down to a lot of things that were meant to destroy you, that were meant to harm you, that if you can examine it in the light of God, if you could look at it from the perspective that it might have been sent to destroy you, but you can allow God to give you a new outlook, a new perspective to deal with the stuff that's in your heart. Like you said, like if you've always had a problem with rejection and then you experience betrayal, you think that that's the pattern. But really, God wants you to look inside and get healed from that rejection. So although it came to harm you, it can turn around and build you and strengthen you and make you better and bring you into a new life, a new perspective, a new outlook, even if you have to redefine how you're going to do life.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Black, for coming on the show. This is Freedom. Thank you for all of the insights, and I want to call them some of the prophetic curveballs that you threw. I believe this episode, I can package it a few different ways, but I believe it's going to help a lot of people, and I'm excited to get it out and for the listeners to listen. But I want people to know how they can connect with you, connect with your ministry, connect with anything that you have going on. Please share whatever you want to share in the next 60 seconds.
They can connect with me by reaching out to my website, www.kimblackministries.com, or reach out to my email, kimblackministries@icloud.com. So I'll be happy to talk with anyone and just share what the Lord is doing in these times and to help build the broken and to get you unstuck.
You've heard it from Dr. Kim Black herself. We want to thank you again for being on the show. Tune in, guys, every week to This is Freedom, where we bring you encouraging, empowering, uplifting, and messages that help equip you to achieve freedom in your life. Be blessed.
Thank you again for tuning into This is Freedom with your host, Demontae Edmonds. We pray you have been inspired on your personal journey to freedom and victory in every area of life. Please tune in weekly for more empowering and inspiring episodes. If you would like to support this broadcast, please Cash App $DE-DMO. Also, we encourage you to visit our website, www.demontaetv.com, for more information and resources. Follow the show's host, Demontae, on Instagram @DemontaeTV.